This review features the 1982 Z28 Camaro. It's a 1/32nd scale kit from Atlantis, number M2004. After decades in the monogram Tomb of Doom, Atlantis has saved some of the Route 32 series of model kits from the crypt and has reissued them for us to enjoy once again. Now, this model of the 1982 Z28 Camaro was initially issued in 1982 by Monogram and is now available as brand new stock. Now, back in the day, and because the kits were relatively cheap and perfectly sized, for many of the kits were primarily adapted to serve as slot car bodies. And as fashionable as that was, they were also nicely detailed models when built with moderate detailing. And if you collect a lot of them, or if you're concerned with space, the 1/32nd scale car models are only about 6 inches long, but they're good representations of the real thing. The kit consists of 47 pieces for the single-purpose version of the 82Z. It is molded in medium blue, clear, and chrome, and includes a detailed one-piece body, interior, and engine, along with scripted rubber tires, chrome plating, parts, and some clear parts along with instructions and water slide decals. The finished model is about 5 3/4 inches long, 2 1/4 inches wide, and 1.5 inches high. Here are the parts in the kit. As you can see, the molds have been very well maintained. The chrome is just the right thickness and color, and the parts, like I said, have very little flash. There will be a couple of ejector pin marks or sinks that you may need to repair, but otherwise it's in very good shape. Here are the decals for the kit. They're not very colorful, but this is what was on the Z28, and this will be just exactly what you need for a good representation. The register is good, and they come off the paper clearly nicely, but there are some issues, but we'll talk about those later on. Construction starts with the engine. As you can see in this mock-up, it's split longitudinally and meets with the lower half that is molded into the chassis. The exhaust is added, and then that includes dual mufflers and a catalytic converter as a separate part, so detailing is very easy. The wheel assemblies are next, and they've got nice chrome depth and quick assembly to the tires. Now, the tires, however, had a little bit too much flash around the ridges of the edges of the tread, so they need to be trimmed off. But I painted the inserts there flat black and detailed the lug nuts with a little chrome pen. The inside of the tires or the wheels are painted flat black. And here you see the front suspension to the left and a couple of tires for the front. And the suspensions fit perfectly into place, and they accept the snap-on wheels. Now, picking out the details on the underside of the car here with some brush painting makes the undercarriage look just as good as larger models do. The dashboard is pretty basic, but if you add some aftermarket decals like you see here for the instrument panel and some of the devices, it really comes to life, and it's really hard to see anyway through that small window. I painted the steering wheel here a silver color. As you can see, we'll add that to the rest of the interior. I used a product called embossing powder, and it's much finer than flocking to represent carpeting. So I first put a little painted the interior a dark blue, the basic tub there, and then with some white glue, I added the flocking to the carpeted areas of the interior. Assemble the front bucket seats next by just assembling the two halves front and back, and then I used a clamp to keep them tight, and then I kind of trimmed off and cleaned up the seam there along the sides. Now, as you noticed in the other picture, I had painted the inserts of the rear seats silver to match that steering wheel, and I'll do the same for these after a coat of dark blue for the base. I also painted the armrests silver to match the rest of the interior highlighting, and as you can see, the interior has enough detail to make it look very interesting. And The vibe of the car was used to kind of represent the Chevrolet that was chosen for the pace car in the Indianapolis 500 that year. And note that one of the headrests is a little bit taller than the other. Now we'll turn our attention to the body. It's very clean. It's very free of flash, and it has only some minor parting lines on the upper fenders and then down the... After I had cleaned those up appropriately, I had determined that the front and rear fascia could be added to the body to eliminate shading differences, from the paint. So after I glued those into place and taped the hood on, I could paint the underside of the vehicle and the top side of the vehicle without getting any variation. The hood has a wide sprue attachment point that needs to be scored and then removed like that in order to avoid damaging the backside of the hood there, which you can clean up with sand sticks and sandpaper. In the molding process, these are what's called cold shuts, where you see the arrow there on the body, and that's where the plastic comes together, but it doesn't give you the most beautiful surface look. So you can also see it here on the back of the fuel cap, and the Z28 emblems there, they need to be scratched off and sanded clean so that you can just use the decals there instead. So now we'll glue the front and rear fascias. You see them positioned there to the body. They just fit right into place. Just use some liquid glue to glue them into position. Once I had cleaned up the body and gotten rid of all the imperfections, etc., I sprayed the assembly parts that you see here with a good primer. I added a little strip of plastic that you won't really notice afterwards, but it will help to mount the rear window, which I found fit almost exactly onto that space, but sometimes would just fall in. I didn't want that to happen during assembly, so you see the strip here, and that'll come into play later on. I also gave the body and the hood several light coats of a metallic silver color, and painted the headliner a flat black color as well. That little mounting strip that I added will stabilize the window at the base and the edges there, so you won't see it anyway, but I also went over it with a silver Sharpie to disguise its position. There's a little bit of detail painting to do on the body. In the back, that recess where the license plates goes, that's painted flat black. Most of it's covered with the taillight section, but also in front, there's a situation where the bezels, so to speak, or the nacelles where the headlights go and the grille, etc., are painted flat black and touched up with a Sharpie pen. And also the amber is applied to the turn signals there. After the exterior paint has dried, you can detail the engine bay with some flat black and pick out some of the details there as you see. Next up is the application of the decals, and we'll apply those to the body. And there's a little tip. Those parts that wrap around the base, I sectioned them and put them back together so that they fit in that regard without becoming distorted and requiring excessive amounts of setting solution to keep them wrapped around. Even so, there were some small gaps, and a little gloss white touched those up to keep them looking nice. Also, you'll notice the louvers there on the hood. Those are flat. So I actually took them and cut them out of the decal sheet, sprayed them with flat paint, and then cut them out separately and applied them to the hood. Next, we can add the engine and drivetrain and the radiator to the floor pan there and put those together, and the model is coming together as a whole. And now we can drop the interior into the body. As you see, it's upside down there. Just find your locating points and glue it into position and paint that drive shaft tunnel flat black and the wheel wells as well. And now we're going to turn the model over and position that for installing it onto the chassis. Turn the body and chassis upside down and start the chassis at the back ends, and then spread the sides a little bit out with the body and with the chassis going in at a slight angle in the back, it will drop right into the front. You just have to watch out that the alternator clears the radiator shroud up in the engine bay. Next, there's a couple items to add to the engine bay. The air cleaner goes into position. Notice that it has some flat black tubing, flexible tubing on it, and it's been picked out in the recesses with a little bit of a black wash. Also, the radiator hose there is installed, and you can see them in position here towards the upper end of the E-bay from this direction. The tail lights get painted like this. You can see the stoplight red, the yellow amber, and some white paint along with a strip in the center. Now I used an ultrafine Sharpie to paint that strip in the center and some flat black for the interior close to the plate. Now those are installed with a little bit of glue, and as you can see, they look pretty good. I had painted the mirror separately to avoid any issues with shadowing, and it's time to install that now. You use a little bit of super glue to put that into place. Well, there you have it. With the addition of the windows put into place with a little crystal clear or a white glue, the model is finished, and you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference between this and the 1/25th scale version of the model from these photos. As I said before, if you're looking to save some space and you want a little faster build, a 1/32nd scale is a nice way to go. So if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf.
Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.
This review is brought to you in part by Ryder's Hobby Shops, where the fun begins. Stop in to one of Ryder's 2 convenient Michigan locations where you'll find a full range of the latest hobby products, supplies, parts, tools, and paint. You'll find aisles and aisles of scale model kits, RC models, model rockets, Warhammer gaming, and railroading products. Stop in at Ryder's today and tell them Doug sent you.